adjournment, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Resuming debate, the honourable member for Saskatoon-Grasswood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be sharing my time with the honourable member from Edmonton West this afternoon. Mr. Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to speak for the first time in this place since my election in October, and I want to personally thank my family, my wife Anne of 38 years, my daughter Courtney, and my son Jeff. All worked very hard on our campaign, but I should add that our daughter actually delivered our first grandchild, a girl, called Avery, during the election. So we did have a little hiccup, yes. Thank you. And as you all know, we all need support from home, and I certainly got it during the 78-day campaign. I would also like to thank my campaign team as they put in, like many others around this place, hours and hours and hours to make sure that this moment could happen here today. I have spent my entire life serving the public, a sports broadcaster in the city of Saskatoon for nearly 40 years. That has helped me, I think, in the transition to become an effective member of Parliament. I have spent many years on non-profit boards over the years like Kidsport, YMCA, along with Sport Tourism. I've been involved in a number of fundraising agencies and also served on a number of provincial and national sport governing bodies in this country. The last 9.5 years, I have served as trustee for the Saskatoon Board of Education. It is the largest school division in the province, serving over 25,000 students. I was also elected as the urban public representative on the Saskatchewan School Board's executive. That represents cities like Saskatoon, Regina, and Lloydminster. Mr. Speaker, as you know, education is changing. This past year, our school division signed an historical partnership with the Whitecap Dakota First Nation. Teachers from our school division are working on reserve, following the Saskatchewan curriculum, which supports students' academic growth. It was also sponsored in part by our federal government. While students stay on the reserve in the learning years, they will transfer to the city for the middle years to continue their education. In fact, Mr. Speaker, a new school is currently built in my riding right now, as they will welcome these students from the reserve in 2017. My riding of Saskatoon-Grasswood is about 93% urban, which is the city of Saskatoon, and roughly 7% rural. The south portion of the riding is the RM of Corman Park. It is the home of diverse farming, businesses, and acreages. Saskatoon-Grasswood has experienced tremendous growth a number of years, maybe the most in the province of Saskatchewan. Two new massive subdivisions, Stonebridge and Rosewood, have been built. The riding has become a strong economic engine for the city, with a population now roughly 250,000. Infrastructure for a growing community is always a top priority. The previous government met those challenges with the construction of the South Bridge connecting our community east and west. Over $90 million of federal infrastructure money was provided for this project. This project, the South Bridge, was talked about in our city for nearly 100 years. And when you have the South Saskatchewan River flowing through your city, you know you need bridges and you need roads. And more roads and more bridges will be needed. The previous federal government worked well with our city, preparing for the future. The future that will commit over $57 million to the North Commuter Parkway Bridge. And I might also add, our previous government, through the P3 fund, committed another $43 million to the new Civic Operations Centre, which is currently being built in the city of Saskatoon. And the Federal Gas Tax Fund has been a winner in the province of Saskatchewan and certainly the city of Saskatoon. It has committed over $12 million to the city each and every year since 2011. Saskatoon, as you know, has been known as the Hub City. It's roughly situated about halfway through the province. It is very, very important for the lucrative resource sector. The resource sector of potash, uranium, oil and gas, forestry, plus the agriculture community that surrounds the city of Saskatoon. Manufacturing is a big part of employment, supplying the necessary equipment to the mines and the farming community. The throne speech, though, said nothing about agriculture. And I recently attended the crop production show at Prairieland Park. It's the largest winter agriculture event in the province of Saskatchewan. There was little optimism, Mr. Speaker, directed towards the federal government because of no mention of agriculture from the speech of the throne. Companies like Potash Corp, headquartered in Saskatoon, look for signals and directions from the federal government. Since there was no mention of agriculture, it came as no surprise whatsoever when the company announced the closure of their mine in New Brunswick earlier this month, putting over 400 people out of work. Saskatoon Grasswood has the highest number of seniors in the province. Now, during the election, we had many meetings with senior groups. They were excited about the proposed increase in the tax-free savings account. Seniors enjoyed the benefits of income splitting, two very good innovations from the former government. Unfortunately, the speech from the throne offered very little to my constituents, the seniors of Saskatoon Grasswood. Our riding has welcomed immigrants along with refugees with open arms. Our neighborhoods have certainly changed over the years. In fact, we have many Muslims in our riding. They provided huge support for myself and our campaign team, along with our party in the riding. And the Ahmadiyyan Muslim group, Mr. Speaker, are currently building a new mosque right in the riding of Saskatoon Grasswood. I should add, our riding is also the home of the Western Development Museum. Now, every summer, we have what's called Heritage Days for the public to gain a better understanding for what our ancestors had to go through. I am honored to be the Deputy Critic of Heritage. We are anxious also to see how the Canada 150 Fund is rolled out as we celebrate Canada's 150th birthday in the year of 2017. Our government committed $500,000 for playground structure upgrades and another $300,000 to help support the White Buffalo Youth Lodge. Our previous government played a very important part in our heritage in the city and the province. In fact, we are currently building a new art gallery in Saskatoon in partnership with the province, the city, and the community stakeholders. $13 million from the Building Canada Fund investments has gone into this project that will open very soon. And finally, Mr. Speaker, we all want to live healthy lifestyles, and since I was in sports most of my life, I would be remiss if I didn't include Saskatoon Grasswood is home of 5 golf courses. We're home to a curling rink, a swimming facility. We're also home to 2 privately run indoor skating facilities, including one that is almost fully dedicated to seniors 50 and over to play hockey when they wish. We, too, have many ball fields in the riding of Saskatoon Grasswood, and we are hoping in the future that a winter recreation site at Deafin Park will dawn the banks of the South Saskatchewan in the city of Saskatoon. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Questions or comments? The Honourable Member for Scarborough Rouge Park.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my friend and congratulate him on his election. Also congratulate him on his new granddaughter. Mr. Speaker, it occurred to me when I was listening to the speech from our honourable member that infrastructure plays a very important role in his city, and as it does across the country. I'd like to get a sense from him as to how the proposed $60 billion infrastructure fund that our government's proposing will assist him in his riding and the important infrastructure needs that he talked about, and particularly the arena and the other things that he spoke about, how this fund could assist him in applying and developing very needed infrastructure, not just in Saskatoon, but elsewhere.
Member for Saskatoon Grasswood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to personally thank the honourable member for the question and congratulate him on his election here. Infrastructure is very important, Mr. Speaker. We have seen that. But with infrastructure, you can throw money at projects all you want. There has to be a lot of planning that takes place. I think in the city of Saskatoon and the province of Saskatchewan, and like everywhere in this country, planning has to happen. You have to plan, then you have to execute. And something that we don't often talk about in government is you have to debrief after projects have done, after they've been progressed through. Sometimes we don't do that in government. We just throw the money at a certain project and walk away. We never ask a question, Mr. Speaker. What could we have done differently? What can we do maybe differently down the road to help a new project? Infrastructure, first and foremost, in every part of this country is most important. We welcome the infrastructure money coming forward. We are concerned a little bit about shovel-ready because it takes time to plan. But certainly with the Liberal throne speech you have mentioned, lots of money coming forth for infrastructure. We're all excited about that, and we want to see how that's rolled out.
Questions and comments? The honourable member from Mississippi River. Am I correct? Or I'm sorry. The honourable member for North Island, Powell River.
I would like to congratulate the member from Saskatoon Grasswood on his first speech in the House, and I appreciate the work that you've done around Aboriginal youth and education in your riding. Yesterday, we heard about the results of the tribunal identifying that Canada has actively discriminated against children on reserves. Will you stand with me for the immediate boost of funding for children services on reserve?
Here.
The honourable member for Saskatoon Grasswood.
Yes, I would like to thank once again the honourable member from North Island, Powell River, for her question. We all know in this House what has happened in my province in the last week. La Loche, Saskatchewan, were deeply affected. This whole country was deeply affected with the 4 people that lost their lives. Partnerships are so important, and that's why when you partner with, like we did, the Whitecap Dakota First Nation on education, we reached out to them, and it was so thrilling to find that Chief Darcy Bear would reach back and say, yes, we have a need. We have a desperate need in education on our reserve. Whitecap Dakota then worked with the previous federal government. They had a plan. It took over 2 years to educate the federal government and what is needed because, as you know, education is a federal responsibility. I think what has happened in the last 7 to 10 days is a sobering thought for all MPs in this House of Commons. Unfortunately, for many of the reserves, many of them are out of reach, as much as has been said in the last week about La Loche, Saskatchewan. We need to reach out to those communities. This was a step, I think, in the Human Rights Tribunal, the announcement yesterday by Chair Cindy Blackstock. I think all MPs will welcome a change going forward.
Reprise du débat.